You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to episode 189 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella, Morgan Burkett, Eric Reese, and we're back. We're here. I mean, the four horsemen are back together. I mean, this feels kind of refreshing. Like, you know, I don't know. I kind of miss you guys. Let's just put it like that, right?
Who are you guys?
I knew it. I was like, who's going to be the first one to burst the bubble? Thanks, Zach.
How are we feeling tonight, guys?
Feeling great, man. I'm a little bit double duty. I'm giving you guys all the attention, but I'm kind of looking at the Flyers game as well. But, yeah, now we're feeling great after a nice, long Thanksgiving.
Nice. How you feeling, Zach?
I'm exhausted. I mean, all great things. Eagles win on Sunday. Great Sixers win on Monday. But you add in a midnight radio spot plus a full day's work, and then I just came from a Sixers pod. It's a little bit of running around right now. So I'm feeling good, though, now that I got a little bit of the Bowman in me and ready to rumble.
I'm feeling good too, man. I feel good. I hit some bets this weekend, and I don't know. Nothing puts you in a better mood than finally seeing. It was at the point where I just needed to see it go in the goal, get it in the net. So I won a couple small ones, and then hit a few bigger ones, and I don't know. That always turns a weekend around, I think.
It's fair. I'm assuming everybody had a good Thanksgiving except for Morgan. I think you guys
that.
celebrate Thanksgiving. What do you guys do?
It's a different day.
It's a different day.
Yeah, we wanted to be in the chase. Saying thanks is kind of our thing, so we wanted to get there first, I think.
Okay, so I guess the giving is our thing. Is that what you're trying to say?
I guess so.
So I went to Toronto with my wife a few years ago, and we went through Niagara Falls. We did the Canada side, obviously, because the New York side sucks.
Yep.
And the one thing that we didn't know, because it was October, and why would we think this? It was Canadian Thanksgiving. So that's how we figured out that Canadian Thanksgiving is a completely different day by being surrounded by mobs of people at the Niagara Falls there. So it was still worth it, still fun. But yes, since that day, I don't know about years before, Canadians have celebrated Thanksgiving in October.
Yeah, we just move it around every year.
Do you eat a turducken?
Like the summer solstice. Yeah, ours is surrounded by a moose and a bear. We got moose, bear, and I forget what the third animal is. I think it's just a duck.
I was going to ask, do you have a maple gravy? Because I'm kind of that might actually be something. That might be something now that I think of it.
We got to add that next year, I think.
That sounds a little off.
I don't know, man. I think a maple. You mix in the sweet and the savory. That sounded pretty good. That's like a chicken McGriddle right there. That's feeling pretty good.
Hell yeah.
I feel like I don't know what you guys buy. I don't know if you guys actually make them, but I feel like there's so many more American Thanksgiving food items that we don't have. Like sweet potato pie. I always see that. We don't have it. We got pumpkin pie.
That's kind of basic.
Yeah. We always did a sweet potato side dish, so my mom, she has done it's like a bourbon whipped. Well, so it's actually it's bourbon. So it's like a bacon bourbon whipped sweet potato, and it's it's better than any mashed potato you ever had.
See, we do squash, but we don't have sweet potato. I guess
squash still hits. Squash still hits.
Yeah. Put the brown sugar and the cinnamon and the nutmeg.
Been doing a little bit
squash?
Oh yeah, on squash, you gotta try it, Brian. It's good.
Brown sugar.
Have you ever tried a spaghetti squash? Like he actually made a squash into a spaghetti. Cause that's fire too.
Yeah,
I don't think I have.
Made a squash into a spaghetti. I know the concept of spaghetti squash, but just made a squash into spaghetti is a funny way to think of it.
It's fair.
Oh,
It is very fair.
I used a lot of glue.
I hate the fact that we're 5 minutes into this talking about squash after the fact that the Eagles just won a great overtime game against the Bills.
Let's talk about that.
Let's
game.
talk about the Eagles
Let's squash
squashing
this
the Bills.
conversation, if you will.
So Eagles came out on top 37-34 in an overtime win against the Bills, where it looked like the Bills were in control in every aspect of the game starting out. Really, though, I mean, the one thing you can't count out is Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, the guy is remarkable when he's down. The team's always in the game no matter what the score is. It felt like this was, being a runaway game from the Bills. Josh Allen was definitely on point throughout the entire game. But when it mattered most, the better QB showed up. Let's put it that way, right? The better playmaker, the better game breaker showed up in the against the Bills. And how did you guys feel about it overall? I know the first half was just abysmal. It was a half to forget. It felt kind of like the trust the process here to the Sixers. But second half, second half, I mean, it felt pretty damn good.
Yeah, I thought in the first half, man, like just watching this team, and it's so how drastically different the protection is. Obviously without Lane in there, you had Driscoll in there. I'm not saying Driscoll, was like really was like the reason or played a reason and why they won later on. Like I think that was definitely all the skill playmakers. But I do think Driscoll, let's give him a little bit of credit. I think he didn't get beat as badly as he did in the first half as the game went on, like in the second half and overtime. But I also think that there was a lot of deliberation to run plays away from his side, because each time Hurts even had to be on that side at all, he was under complete pressure.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a couple good points there. Driscoll obviously coming into the game pretty fresh face as far as the season goes, because Lane Johnson is normally such a mainstay of that offensive line. It for an offensive lineman especially, it's going to take a little bit of time, a few reps, until you kind of figure out that chemistry, kind of get into the swing of things there. So definitely a game where he got better as it went on. I think that is not necessarily a surprise, just how the position normally works out, but definitely a credit to Jack Driscoll for holding in there. And I do think you're right. I think they tried to lessen that burden on him and on Cam Jurgens, who's only in his second game coming back from injury. So you watch a lot of these actions where they had most of it was either DeAndre Swift or Jalen Hurts, but really focusing on that left side of the field, favoring it kind of like you would an injured foot. But even still, I think that it was a solid performance by the offensive line. Obviously, they had their foibles, and everyone remembers what happened to Jason Kelce by the end of the game. But all things considered, I thought the offensive line performed well. I was freaking out in that first half. I'll be flat honest with you. Just some of the mistakes, the mental errors, the play calling, which I'm sure we will talk about ad nauseum tonight, really just getting under my skin. But the team, and led by Jalen Hurts and the defensive effort, let's not forget that, really stepped things up in the second half. Not too different than how they did against Kansas City the week before. And obviously it worked out in very stressful fashion. But in the end, go Birds, go Jake Elliott, the greatest Eagles kicker of all time.
That was such a moment.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, like it's almost like every group on the Eagles kind of reminds me of like that old dude at LA Fitness playing pickup. He's wearing like those long one shorts. He's got the Shaq Reeboks on. You're like, why is this guy hanging around? I don't understand. And then all of a sudden, the other team starts hanging up points, and this dude comes out of the woodwork, start hitting threes, going behind the back, like distributing. Like it just feels like it's a different Eagles team when there's a little pressure applied, right? When the pressure gets going, whoever needs to make a play makes a play. And so, like what Eric and Zach were talking about with the offensive line, man, like it looked pretty dreadful at points in the first half. It did not look good. The biggest thing for me that stuck out is how bad the tackling was on defense. There were so many times, and I get it. Josh Allen's been hard to take down for a lot of teams this year, but it wasn't just him. We were missing tackles on whoever was running the football. We're missing tackles on receivers. We're taking bad angles. Our eyes are in bad spots. Just like a lot of routine things that a team that has championship caliber and has so many veterans shouldn't be making. But then, you get into overtime, you get into late into the fourth quarter, and you need those plays. We talked about James Bradbury last week. Well, he let up that long reception up the sideline to clear Shakir, I believe it was. And little did you know, in the fourth quarter when we need an interception, he bluffs that same coverage, comes down and picks it off, right? So there's a lot of frustrating things, but eventually the Eagles seem to figure it out. So that's positive, but there's definitely some things, again, like the tackling, the offensive line stuff that needs to be sorted before the playoffs, because you're going to see teams just like the one you're going to see this weekend that will take advantage of every single mistake.
Talking about the playmaking, right? Brian Johnson, extremely frustrating effort in the first half, right? We saw a lot. It kind of feels like he game plans the script for the first part of the game, right? But then he falls off the cliff and it just starts scrambling and starts trying to figure out what he has on offense. We haven't seen much of A.J. Brown as of late because of how he's been defended, but it's great to see Devontae Smith kind of break out. Oz broke out with a huge touchdown, right? But I agree with you. At some point, you keep playing with fire, and fire is going to bite you in the ass. And this is the team that that we face on this Sunday that is hungry to bite the Eagles in the ass at this point. But I don't know. How confident are you in Brian Johnson going forward? Because he's getting national praise, right, for being great situationally, right? The team is fifth in red zone percentage right at this point in the season. When they were almost dead last a couple of weeks ago. I think they're first in fourth down percentage, and I think third in third down percentage, if I'm not mistaken. So they're doing the right things at the right time, but the Eagles have yet to put together a complete game to convince people outside of Philly that this team actually is who we think they are. How big of a concern is Brian Johnson going forward now?
I think he's a relatively big concern still. I know that I'm one of his biggest detractors, but as far as the way that I view Brian Johnson, I ask myself all the time, if he was calling the shots on any other team, how would that team look? And I think that other team, if he was calling the shots on any other team, would look horrible. I think why he doesn't look horrible in Philly is because this team is performing. The talent on this team is performing despite his play calling. And I think that this comeback and this win in overtime is a great example of that.
Yeah, I think the winning in spite of Brian Johnson angle has some validity to it. It's easy to pile on the coach and say that he's the reason why they haven't been seeing the success. I mean, listen, there's plenty of success going on in Philadelphia. They're 10-1, but they're not winning these games the way that they should be able to, and it's easy to put that on the coach. Just because it's easy doesn't mean it's wrong, though. When you watch these games and you see just the nonsensical pattern, especially when you look at the script for that first series against Buffalo in this game on Sunday. 3 straight pass attempts. When you have a rather solid, if not electric, running game between Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift, you're talking about dropping back to pass 3 times. They overly relied on starting plays in shotgun. Like this was not a
felt like Chip Kelly all over again.
Well-coached game. It just felt like you wanted to get this guy. I don't know if they wanted to give Hurts the extra time away from the offensive line or what exactly it was. That extra second to read those routes or what. But there just wasn't a rhyme to the reason, and it just felt sloppy. It felt disjointed. And I get it. There's been inclement weather the past couple of weeks, but explain the rest of the season, if that's the case. So, and again, you're playing against a team that is solid against the run, but hasn't been fantastic consistently in the rain. run the ball at least once on that opening drive. There's no reason on your opening drive your script should call for 3 passing plays unless you're facing just an absolute dearth of weak talent at the defensive back positions.
See, I wanna really be on one side or the other with Brian Johnson, but it's tough, right? Because you kind of are seeing almost the opposite of what you're seeing on the defense, where all the stats kind of back up this really talented offense that's doing really well, and then you turn on the film and you kind of are confused about why it looks so poor, and vice versa. You see a defense that seems to be really good, and then you look at the stats and they're barely in any, like, I think the only thing they're in top 10 is rushing. That's the only thing they're in the top 10 for. So it's kind of like this weird dichotomy of like, okay, the defense seems to be holding us in games, but we just won a game and put up 37 points. So was it the defense? Like, they made critical plays when we needed them, but I think kind of the critical plays that this offense is making, like, it just seems like if a critical play happens and the offense makes it, then it's freestyling. It's Jalen Hurts making a play. And Brian Johnson doesn't seem to get the credit for drawing up the plan. Like, what did we score on? The QB run, which we've been criticizing all year. We're doing too much of it. And then here we go. We get the game-winning touchdown on a QB run. And so there's this weird mix of, like, I don't really know where to stand, because some of this stuff, again, like, it's really good. Again, like, you kind of see this, like, when the clutch is needed, Brian Johnson's play calling is much better, and he's figuring out ways to scheme his players open. It's kind of weird. It's like when good plays happen, again, we're blaming the magic, or we're crediting the magic of Jalen Hurts, but we have to give some kind of credit to Brian Johnson. That's a team you just beat. That put up 30 points and you outscored them, then you won a game. Like, I think that the offense is what kept you in that game and allowed you to win. I think the defense had a pretty poor game. And here we are still kind of talking about whether or not Brian Johnson is good. It kind of puts that into perspective about how weird of a season it's been on offense.
But wouldn't you say that a little bit of, the kind of credit that we can give to Jalen Hurts has to do with the last 2 weeks? We heard that Jalen Hurts audibles and he gets to, Devonta Smith down to the 1 yard line, sets up pretty much the game winning touchdown. And then here, he's definitely communicating with Z, and he's getting into the end zone there. He's definitely, seeing that the safety came down and going, hey, I'm running this outside. Like, I think he read that. But it's also, you do touch on the spamming, if you will, of like the quarterback run. It's almost like, if you're playing Madden and you're going, eventually this halfback dive's going to work. So, and you just keep doing it. Like, maybe, and that's the frustrating part of kind of watching the play call, because you see the screens, they don't work for about 3 drives. And then, eventually DeAndre Swift breaks one. And you're like, well, why was it Swift? And why was it in the second half finally that they used Swift? Like, there's so many different questions and different angles that you can take that are just different points of frustration, with Johnson right now.
I think the issue is the inconsistency. And I think that kind of alludes to what Zach was saying before. Like, your first drive, you're calling 3 passing plays, and then a couple drives later, you're calling 3 run plays. Like, it just feels like the plays are great. The strategy is there. Everything's in place. The potential is there to be awesome, right? But the issue is manufacturing it. The issue is getting your team in a position to succeed. And you're seeing this quarterback do a lot of things out of the norm to get his team in position to succeed. But you also see that when it comes down, to credit to Brian Johnson, when it comes down to the wire, Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts are putting their heads together and figuring it out in the fourth quarter and third quarter. The issue at hand is that, again, the inconsistency, where you don't see that in the first quarter. You don't see that in the second quarter. The Eagles last year, they pride themselves on starting fast. They have yet to start fast this season, and it's starting to bite them in the ass a little bit. I mean, you were down 10 points in the last 2 games. Somehow, some way, you pulled out a victory. But again, like, down the stretch, like, this team's going to get more banged up. This team's going to get more tired. You're seeing defenses lock up A.J. Brown a lot more than they were in the past, which is opening up for Smitty and opening up for Oz, and even opening up the run game, per se, with DeAndre Swift. But it's just a matter of, like, I think the issue at hand is it feels like Brian Johnson plays checkers at times when he's good enough to play chess. Like he's that guy that he's playing Madden on easy when he could damn well play Madden on all Madden and actually conquer the league. And I think that's the issue at hand with Brian Johnson.
And you nailed it.
So you're saying that he's effectively limiting himself.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Is that right? Yeah, I think in some cases you can see that, and part of that could just be the nature of being a kind of green in the gills offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
If he is with the team next year, and I expect him to be with the team next year, unless he were to be sought out by some other club, obviously. Perhaps we're looking at a more, I don't want to say engaged, but perhaps we're looking at a more willing to play with a little risk, Brian Johnson, a little bit more of Brian Johnson who's willing to mix things up a little bit. Could that be the reason? I think that could certainly be a contributing factor. The one thing that I'm not quite sure what the thought process is behind the running attack, because on paper and statistically it's been great because Jalen makes up so much for a lot of these rushing yards. But thinking specifically of the backs, that's the thing that I kind of can't get through my head as far as why isn't this more established? And is the reason for that just Brian Johnson's familiarity with Jalen Hurts and the trust that he exhibits in him and allowing Hurts to kind of take control of the game, or what exactly is it? Because you have backs like DeAndre Swift and on top of that, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. I know people aren't enthused with, but he had 2 pretty good carries, or rather, I guess, really just 1 good carry that kind of cheated his yards a little bit last week. But you have a whole stable of backs, and you're not even using your prize steed in the most effective way. We're not seeing DeAndre Swift utilized as a weapon, not even just a back like we thought we might see earlier in the season. We're not seeing a whole lot of that continued workhorse usage out of him either. Now, are they saving it for the playoffs? Maybe that's kind of a poor strategy in this gauntlet of teams that you're facing now, but so far it's worked out pretty well for them. What exactly is the rationale behind this? I understand that losing Dallas Goedert affects a lot across, like on both sides, running and passing. But even still, there just doesn't seem to be, and I'm going to say this again, a rhyme and reason to the current play calling, and that's the biggest thing that leaves me with a question: is like, what is the rationale behind this? And if it is as simple as he's not taking a lot of risks now, which I would argue that he is taking risks by relying so heavily on Jalen Hurts. Is he just not taking risks now because he's so fresh to the position? Is that going to change eventually? I don't know if that's the answer, but he's going to have to figure that out as the season goes on, because the Eagles obviously aren't going anywhere, at least until after their first playoff game, because they're such a well-established team. So he's going to have opportunity to figure this out. He's going to have some easier competition towards the end of the season. If this isn't figured out by the time they're playing the Arizonas and twice the Giants, Brian's team, by the end of the year, then I don't know what to rationalize this thought process as. And that's still my biggest question with Brian Johnson going forward.
Do you think that when they play those teams at the end of the year, and there's a probability that Jalen Hurts is sitting, that we'll get a kind of an idea of what Brian Johnson is as an actual coordinator when he's not, having the utilization of somebody like Hurts?
It's going to be tough to judge a guy like Brian Johnson when Marcus Mariota is the quarterback.
Fair.
That is,
I just want to see what the play calling. I just want to see how the play calling differs too. I just want to see if the play calling differs too, because if it's the same sort of deal, even with Mariota, then I kind of think that I'm hard pressed not to think that that Hurts isn't carrying the load here, and the rest of the ability isn't. The rest of the success isn't just riding with the ability of like an AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
It's interesting because you would think that it would be a similar system with Marcus Mariota. So, to a degree, I think that yes, there is something that we'll see out of that. But Mariota's limitations, as far as his arm is concerned, may throw things off there. But I think that he should, as anyone should be continually evaluated each week in and week out. I mean, that's the same case for Jalen Hurts. That's the same case for the offensive line, for the defense, for Sean Desai, for Nick Sirianni. That is the case for everyone. I mean, that's just what it is. You watch the games, you process it, you evaluate, the performance of everyone, including the coaching staff. So I think that it is something that, maybe he'll take that opportunity to kind of try some things that they might, again, try with Hurts come the postseason, but maybe open up the playbook a little bit, take a few more risks. But I think that you can't judge him by the errors in that game as severely as maybe some people are going to want to.
I agree. And then to kind of just wrap it up, as we'll get into Eagles and 49ers, which I think is the more pressing conversation after these last 2 wins. You said it before, the defense, they did their part. Somehow, some way, Sean Desai is pulling it off, and it's great to see. Real quick thoughts on the defense, the secondary. Is anybody a little concerned about the Kevin Byard stats?
I mean, I don't think he's gonna jump off the page in terms of stats. Like, that's not the way this defense is designed. And I think that a couple of interceptions would be nice to see. But I think what he is he provides you a lot of stability back there, and it allows us to do things like you saw with that interception that Bradbury got, is they just swing the safeties, right? Like, he gives you that flexibility to play that too high shell and kind of disguise looks. And so if it ends up being his interception, so be it. But I think he provides you a lot of flexibility back there where you can keep, hopefully Bradbury and Slay in more advantageous situations, because I think, like you said, Brian, they've been playing a bit out of position. They're still clearly trying to figure out how to use them. I think Desai, again, like we talk about Brian Johnson, but Desai, again, still has a long way to go in terms of a coordinator. But what really is, again, I already said it, but what really was frustrating to me is the tackling. And you have so many vets on this roster that should be able to tackle. That shouldn't be an issue, especially this late in the season. And that becomes a bigger issue later on in the season. Obviously, fatigue plays a part, but you're not dealing with rookies. There are rookies on the starting positions that were missing tackles. Don't get me wrong, but as a whole, the defense was not good. And that defensive line, again, like, as much as we lean on the defensive line, there's another game where they had an opportunity to shut the Bills down in multiple places, and again, they made the plays they needed to make, but we still haven't seen that that dominance that we've seen in the past couple of years, where the team that they're playing has an opportunity to come back, and it's the D line that shuts it down. So all in all, I think the defense is a little underwhelming, but they're making plays when they have to make them. It's just about cleaning up those little things that's really kind of bugging me.
I think I just disagree a little bit about the idea that the defensive line just hasn't been able to shut down the teams towards the end of the game. I think they have, and I think that's a lot of the reason why the offense is able to kind of come up with those the final drive, comeback wins here and take the lead. From what I saw in Kansas City, got a little bit lucky with that overthrown pass, but Mahomes was neutralized, I thought, pretty well by the defensive line. I thought, actually think about Byard, is I think he just maybe had one off game, and there's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders with Allen out there, because we can't discredit what we did see from him as well against Kelsey either. So when I think about this defense, I think that they get the credit that they deserve. I think the defensive line still, we hit it every week. They're the ride or die, this team. But I'm not worried about Byard. Going back to your point, Brian, I think that he's kind of settling into his role, but not yet settled. And I think we saw, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly, I think, was his first, game out there, because he had no idea what he was doing. The bad was probably the most recent, and the good was obviously Kansas City. So this week will be a telltale test for what Byard is in Philadelphia, obviously, against San Francisco.
Sure, that's very fair. 49ers?
Yeah, let's
So
talk it.
joining us from Niners Nation, we have Jason Aponte, who's entering an enemy territory, right? A little weird rivalry going on. I'm gonna say it how it is, right? How we see it on our end. Eagles, they beat the 49ers NFC Championship. The Niners play a lot of Niners players whined about it after the game, right? You know, they carried it over throughout the off season. Um, yeah, man. I'm trying to be respectful, Jason. It's your first time here.
You're good. You look, it's a good thing that this game has nothing to talk about. There's nothing like around it that's any cool, right? Like it's a good thing that this is such a boring, like low class game. I actually was able to cover my first Super Bowl, which happened to be Eagles and the Chiefs. And kind of going back to that was opening media night. Every Eagles player was asked about what Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk said. And when we go down to media row, every 49er player, even Trey Lance, who wasn't even ready to play in that game, was asked about what happened with the Eagles. So it's a little bit of back and forth. The way that I've been looking at it has been, if you lose, you lose. And I've been telling 49ers fans since it happened, it was a sobering moment. Like, if the Philadelphia Eagles lost Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew and the guy behind him and the guy behind him, you wouldn't be saying, man, I don't know. Philly deserves to get another shot. I don't feel as good about this NFC champ. Like, stop. Like, just stop. It was just a poor set of circumstances that happened to your team. Now, if it was flipped, you wouldn't be giving the Philadelphia Eagles, well, it kind of sucks that happened to them. No, you'd say, we're going to the Super Bowl in Arizona. So that's just kind of where I am with it. Right now, as a 49er content creator fan, this game is important because it's going to put a lot of things to bed. Okay, I don't want to hear about what you could have done. I saw the vision too. Maybe I sipped the Kool-Aid when I watched the All-22 a little bit too myself. And I listened to those guys talk. But now you have the game Sunday. You're largely healthy, right? We've even got a little side switching with Javon Hargrave. Thank God he's going to be able to give us all the secrets from the Eagles, because isn't that what all opposing players do, right? Like they're just like, they signed this guy to the practice squad just so he could download the playbook. No, like that's not really at all what's happening. But it's about right now just figuring out whatever it is that you thought you were going to do, whatever it is you think you're going to do, then do it. Now this is it. You're not going to get the NFC title back. You're not going to get into the number 1 seed, but do it now. And if you don't do it, I don't want to hear a thing about it after. I don't want to hear about why it didn't work, what should have worked. Get it done. This is it. It's right here in front of you. So I don't know that you expected me to come on here and be as, I guess, rational when it comes to that. And I'm definitely not pandering, by the way, because I've got some reasons why the 49ers can win this game as well, too. But it's still more put up or shut up for the 49ers, because the talking back and forth has gotten so loud that even Lions players are involved in this, and they don't even play for the Eagles anymore. Like, this is literally where we are at this point.
It's a tough site, right? I mean, Debo. I mean, one thing I did respect, I kind of stumbled upon this on Instagram. Fred Warner and his wife kind of talking about the matchup. Warner's wife was kind of like, kind of just trying to pressure him to saying like, hey, like you should have won, but he was like, no, like we lost, the better team won. Like exactly what you said. Like it was unforeseen circumstances that led to the Eagles winning, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, it was just the better team that won, right? Kind of wish we had Jason on last year for the NFC Championship matchup. Now,
I've matured a lot. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know if you wanted that guy. This is the best guy for your show right now.
All right, fair game.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, looking at the matchup, I mean, obviously you heard us talk about the Eagles' struggles, right? Even though they are a 10-1 team, the 10-1 team that's still yet to peak. Which a lot of us felt like, the Niners peaked off very early in the season, and it kind of fell off the bandwagon a little bit, but they're catching their groove again, right? What's an advantage you think offensively that the Niners are going to bring to the link on Sunday?
Yeah, it's got to be against the secondary. I mean, I was a little bit shocked when I pulled up the defensive line numbers, and I think you guys are 27th on sacks per pass attempt. I would have never thought that, especially early on with the way the Sweat and Jalen Carter. And thanks a lot, NFL Draft, for letting you guys get Jalen Carter, by the way. I'll never understand the process. Like, I get it. You're character issues, but there's no way that the NFL should have allowed this to happen. But I was a little bit shocked to see that the defensive line hasn't necessarily done it over the entire game. But I think it was Eric that was speaking earlier about like making it happen at the right times. And this is what I admire about the Philadelphia Eagles so much. Regardless of wherever you feel you're at right now, you're winning games, and you're winning games in every style. And I think that's important, right? Like you can look and say, hey, listen, I'm concerned about this, I'm concerned about that. But rarely in football are you going to play 4 clean quarters and everything's going to go your way. You got to be able to get it out the mud. And I think the one thing the 49ers have not done this season at all is win one of those muddy games where things are not going well. Sunday, it sounds like it's going to rain again. Hooray. Super excited for that because the 49ers always play well when it rains. That's huge sarcasm, by the way, just in case.
Yeah.
But I think more than anything, there is something to be said about the fact that the Eagles, regardless, whatever. All right. The lazy narratives are Kansas City dropped a bunch of passes, or Buffalo misses the throw to Gabe Davis, or the refs are in the Eagles. Listen, I'd rather almost lose than almost win every single time, and the Eagles always find a way to get that done. Having said that, it's got to be going at your secondary right now, and it's funny because the numbers on the two guys that you guys were pulling up, talking about earlier, Slay and Bradbury. I went and I did some digging. So Darius Slay has 499 coverage snaps, and James Bradbury has 488. They both have been targeted a nice number of 69 times, both of them. The same number, right? Okay. So we've got 45 receptions allowed for Darius Slay, which is 65.2% of catch allowance. But there's yak at the end of those with 218, right? And that just means basically they're bigger plays. I'm not like Slay's not the guy you really want to go after. It's the Bradbury numbers that really came back to me and showed me something. It's 37 receptions on those 69 targets, 436 yards allowed. He does have 7 PBUs. That's important. And he got his first interception in the Buffalo game, but he's allowed 7 touchdowns and an NFL rating of 100.9. I think, again, I wouldn't choose the words that Deebo Samuel chose to talk about James Bradbury, and obviously he's doubling down on these things. But the 49ers did have a plan in the NFC title game to kind of use motion to confuse the back end, and that's kind of what Kansas City did at certain points during the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know the field, I guess, wasn't ideal for whatever reason. Even though I was on the field and that guy like held a press conference about how he sodded the field and everything, I want to talk to that guy again. Like I don't think he did the job.
He was lying.
Yeah, he's just standing there like, and they're glazing him for like 20 minutes about like how he sodded the field. Everybody hated the field after. But I do think it's a secondary. I do think that if the 49ers have any chance in this game, it's going to have to be with chunk plays and possessing the football. The other thing that's been happening to you guys the last 2 weeks has been time of possession has been completely distorted. You've got your defense on the field for almost 140 plays the last 2 weeks, including an overtime game. The 49ers are coming off a mini bye. You've got that advantage. You got to kind of stick with that. So you'll see a little bit more running. But if I know Kyle Shanahan and how much he loves Brock Purdy, he's going to want to throw that football because he's having a ton of fun because he's had guys who just miss wide open throws the entire time he's been there. Sorry for being long.
No, that's fine, and I think that's exactly something that's going to pay off. You and I agree. I've said it all year, and I've used the Commanders as huge examples. If Sam Howell can do it, literally, everybody but like Mac Jones and whoever the Jets want to put at quarterback can do it. Even though the Jets beat us, but whatever. My point is this: Brock Purdy is not the same idea going into this game as it was in the NFC Championship when he was a relative unknown, don't want a hot streak then, and then no one's expecting like Murphy's Law to happen this time around. So in that case, yeah, I can actually see the 49ers being able to run up scores, whereas to the point where it's uncomfortable, and this game is a very close one. We'll talk about that later, Brian. The predictions and all that, but I see this one being a kind of a high scoring game, and I think both offenses are actually going to go out of their way and play, like overachieve against the defenses. Like if that makes any sense. Like I think that you guys will find a way to kind of rush around our defensive line, and I think we'll find a way to break open some plays. Probably going to have to be a big, chunk play, probably with an AJ Brown, something that's very full of talent.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is whether or not they sign Shaq Leonard. Like, he's coming to town this week. The Eagles are light at linebacker, and we saw how much it mattered against the Bills. That was just a poor performance all around by the linebackers. Even when Zach Cunningham was in and healthy, he was kind of having an up and down game, and it really matters. As good as that defensive line is, there's an extra gap, and you need a linebacker to fill it, and they just weren't doing that. And then, talk about coverage, it was even worse, right? So it really does matter, and it's going to matter down the stretch. I think we didn't get to talk about it when we were talking about the Bills game, but missing Nakobe Dean, we're starting to see how big that is for the Eagles. He's just so much better in coverage. He's just a smart backer. He flows well, and a lot of plays that could be 6 or 7 yards, he's limiting to 3 or 4, and that's just big, right? You get to play kind of in front of the sticks as a defense. So, I'm a little worried for the pass game, just like Jason mentioned. Like, there's some stats you just can't overlook. But what I think, you're going into another game with a premier tight end and a premier running game, and just that combo seems to be problematic for the Eagles. I don't know if you're going to have Byard covering Kittle like you did with Travis Kelce, but either way, however you try and hide the fact that you don't have linebackers, the 49ers are a well-coached team, and they will find little holes and little gaps in this defense. So I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah, Jason, I guess the one question that I have, and we've talked about it a good bit tonight, talking about how really focusing on the air attack, attacking the Eagles DB is really going to be key. We're looking at a matchup here, two teams, two top 10 rushing offenses against two teams that in total yardage, they're 1 and 2 in rushing yards allowed. How key do you think it's going to be for one of these two teams to get that edge in the rushing game over the other? And even linking it to that time of possession game that you mentioned has been kind of flipped upside down for the Eagles lately.
I'll be honest, Zach, I was disappointed. I thought you were going to ask me about defacing the Rocky statue, which I've been going back and forth with 49ers fans about this entire time. About, like, I was there in 2021. They did the same thing. They won. They did it again in 2022. It doesn't matter. They lost. Like literally, the game's played by players, not by fictional boxers. But I did want to say this about the running game, right? I think what scares the 49ers more than DeAndre Swift, and no disrespect to him, is that they've had the propensity to give it up to rushing quarterbacks. And you saw it happen in the NFC Championship game. But if Jalen Hurts is able to extend drives with his legs on third down and those back-breaking runs where everything's covered on the back end and Jalen just makes a play with his legs and he gets up there and he gets the first down, like, those are the types of runs that they cannot allow. It's not the amount of rushing yards. It's when do they come and who are they coming by? Obviously, on 4th and 1, you're not stopping the tush push. You can try your best. That's fine. But you got to find a way on third down. If it's 3rd and 8 and they're looking down the field, everything's covered, and he's able to break the pocket and get that first down, those are the drives that will drive the 49ers nuts. Trust me, we've dealt with Russell Wilson for a long time. Those are the types of things that have been happening. And it seems like the 49ers have had issues before with running quarterbacks. Not so much this season. I don't really want to, throw Daniel Jones as like the market of like, hey, they're covering running quarterbacks just because how bad the Giants have been. But that's when it's going to get bad, is if Jalen Hurts is able to extend drives or put pressure and get guys out of throwing lanes, get those easy throws on RPOs. That's going to be the scary stuff because of the threat of his legs. Now, on the other side, I do think that it is very much the 49ers want to play a little bit of keep away and keep your defense on the field. I think that's the best way to do it. Obviously, on the road, you want to be able to dominate time of possession. They just did it on Thursday. I think Seattle Seahawks possessed the ball for 22 minutes in that game. Game was nowhere near close. And I obviously, you guys are much better than the Seahawks. Don't kill me or anything like that. But I think that the whole idea is to put your defense in pressure situations because you guys have played so many plays the last 2 weeks in high pressure moments like this. Like, who did you piss off in the NFL schedules to get like Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Seattle, Dallas? Like, is this because, you guys dominated so last year and they were just like, hey, we've got to like throw some stuff their way? But if you are smart, you want to make sure that you have that defense out on the field as long as you can. It's those tired moments when they've had them on the field where you can hit those passes where a guy can't stay with Ayuk for a little bit longer. That's when the 49ers will be able to find their back-breaking plays later on with explosives. But I do suspect that the running game is going to be a big part of it. So expect a little bit of Christian McCaffrey. Well, Expect a ton of Christian McCaffrey. Expect a little bit of Deebo Samuel, who's actually the backup running back. And maybe you'll get a little Elijah Mitchell. But I do think that they want to play ball control just a little bit, just to keep your defense worried and keeping your offense off the field.
If the Niners want to settle for just a little Christian McCaffrey, I think Philadelphia would be perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, we're very inviting to that.
Kyle Shanahan would not listen to me. He doesn't listen to anyone. And it does, it's funny. The game could be like 40-0, and he's in there like icing the game out. Like he just doesn't trust anybody but Christian. It's so funny.
I think an interesting wrinkle to kind of throw out there. The Eagles, and I don't want to use this as an advantage, right? Because he's still a budding defensive coordinator. But Sean Desai faced the 49ers 3 times last year with the Seahawks, right? I mean, granted, they weren't close games except for one where you guys won by 21-13. But I mean, what kind of advantage do you see the Eagles having on the sideline, knowing that Sean Desai does have that experience now with probably a little bit of a better defense situationally? Do you see that as an advantage for the Eagles, or you see that as kind of like, yeah, he was there, but no impact?
I mean, I don't want to brush it aside. I think it's always good to know what's on the other side. You saw them 3 times. The 49ers, completed the hat trick that year with it was 2 quarterbacks. So Brock did 2, and then actually it was all 3 of them. Trey started the Seahawks game, broke his ankle. Jimmy came in, beat them, and then Brock went in there, did it. But yeah, you guys are working with a better personnel, and I think that's something that's really important as well too. Veteran players who, regardless of the call, understand moments and understand things that they'll check off. So I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but on the flip side, I will say that Kyle Shanahan has an idea of the things that he likes to run. Now, has that changed with personnel based on, I don't want to just rush 4 if I can in Seattle. I've got to get more pressure because they don't have the front 4 that you guys have. All those things are going to be a factor. I wouldn't say that it's nothing, but I think, again, personnel is going to dictate who wins on this field, and strategy is a part of it. But I wouldn't brush it away like it's nothing. But it's not going to be something that's like a huge advantage, even though Desai knows them very well.
I want to go back to a point you kind of mentioned earlier, and obviously a fantastic defense for the 49ers. But if there is one weakness, it is those sustained drives, the third down percentage, the red zone percentage. What has been the key for you watching the 49ers play, shutting down those third down plays and the red zone attacks? Because, I mean, on paper, you're going against an Eagles team that seems to be, not necessarily on paper what they do best, but, in those magical moments, they seem to find a way. So what do you think will be the key to limiting those third down and those red zone opportunities for the Eagles?
It's funny. The 49ers have kind of been bend, don't break, but they've gotten some timely turnovers in the red zone. I don't think you can rely on those things, but it seems that guys are ready to make plays. Obviously, with Hufanga not being there, that kind of takes away one of their guys that he could be on the sideline and the ball gets tipped. All of a sudden, it's in Huff's hands, and they're just like, "What a play by him!" I was like, he was literally sitting on the bench, like he didn't do anything. The ball found him. So I think it's more turnovers, little by little, right there, that have kind of changed the momentum of that. It was tough earlier on in the season or the middle of the season when they had that 3-game stretch in the red zone. It felt like they were getting pushed around a little bit. But when you had those timely turnovers, you had this belief that someone's going to make a play. I think that's been a little bit of a difference. I think the one thing that we're completely overlooking is that not the trade for Chase Young, not the fact that the 49ers are loaded on the defensive side of the ball. This changes in their defense has been completely credited to the fact that Steve Wilks came down from the booth and went straight to the sideline. Like, there's no other explanation for it. It's just literally that. That's all they had to do. I'm obviously being sarcastic again because it's one of the silliest things that I've ever heard. Like Dan Quinn doesn't come down. There's guys that call from the booth all the time. Vic Fangio is really good. He does it. But as soon as Steve Wilks kind of came down and they had that bye week to integrate Chase Young, work on some things on the back end, they've been much better on the red zone. They've been much better all across the board. Jacksonville, Seattle, and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is not a terrible team, but it's been 3 really good, impressive performances the last 3 weeks, and it's all due to the fact that Steve Wilks levitated from the booth to the sideline and nothing more than players or anything like that.
I would kind of describe the defenses on both teams to be a little bit the same, kind of like how you said about the 49ers. Bend, don't break. You can own the middle of the field, but when you're in the 20s, it's going to be hard to score. That being said, it's going to be crap weather. We've already talked about that. What's the kind of the scouting report on your kicker? Because our kicker just destroyed the world with his leg.
Oh.
And that I think it's really going to come down to, if we're talking about all of these things and kind of how that can easily play out, it might be a lazy way to look at it, but it could come down to the kicker.
either you guys are just asking me the correct question at the right time, or you've done your research. I despise kickers. I don't think they're football players, and I certainly don't think that they are worthy of draft picks, let alone a top 100 draft pick. Jake Elliott was undrafted, I believe, if it's not mistaken, right? Like I'm not mistaken, right? Undrafted.
I do believe it were, yeah.
Yeah, 58-yard field goals, like nothing in the rain. We're going to overtime. Cool, you don't pay for that. Justin Tucker, go. Doesn't matter, undrafted. The 49ers said, hey, we've got our first pick in the draft, and our second pick in the draft, a top 100 pick. We're going to draft a kicker. Are you insane? Are you insane? The Dallas Cowboys picked up a guy who didn't even play football last year. There's guys who come off the bench that are sitting on the bed right now. Like Randy Bullock is on his couch, and he's just like, hey, you want to come kick? He's like, yeah, cool. Comes on down, and he's kicking. The 49ers truly use a top 100 pick on a kicker. I cannot think of something that makes me more angry than the idea of just tossing away positional value, draft capital on a kicker in which Elliott was undrafted. See, there you go. Elliott was undrafted.
Not actually. He was not undrafted. He was
drafted?
153rd, 5th round. The Bengals selected Elliott.
Okay.
In the 2017 draft.
Okay, so all right, 5th round I can justify more. I still hate even spending a kick on a kicker. Like 5th round I can justify way more. But a top 100 pick on a kicker when the 49ers start to have all these right tackle problems and DeJuan Jones is on the board and Blake Freeland's on the board. But sure, let's make sure we lock in this kicker guy. Yeah, I think the Cleveland game was a little bit of a wake-up call. And I don't mind him missing the kick to end it. I get worried about his actions after. Kind of drooped his shoulders, looked like he was about to cry, and I'm like, oh no, like you've got to flush that and just go. Look, draft capital be damned. I don't care where they drafted you. I just need you to make kicks. Like I know it's good for my content because people love getting me riled up, and I think there's a comment here that says they're absolutely trolling Jason. It's so funny that you brought up kickers. Like I was like, you guys had to have done your research. But
the worst part is I did none of that. It was a logical question that came to mind.
I'll tell you this. If a kicker makes a kick or a kicker misses a kick, I get added one way or another. You know, like Jason was right or Jason was wrong, like on those things. I'm not saying the kicking isn't easy. I'm just saying the approach to finding a kicker isn't through the draft. It's just not something that has legs. But after the Cleveland game, I feel like Jake Moody kind of just like clammed up a little bit. And then sure enough, his first kick against Minnesota, he misses the kick. Now, he hasn't missed since then. But in the rain, big moment. I think if I'm nervous about somebody not coming through in this game, it's probably the kicker at this point. Because you had someone in Robbie Gould that literally would make every big kick. He sends you to the NFC Championship game. He beats this team, beats that team. And now you pivoted to a rookie because you wanted to have an idea of a franchise kicker, and that's just not something that you do within the draft. So that's my long-winded response on the reason that I believe that kickers aren't football players, but they are people and they do deserve rights.
So you tell me you don't draft your kicker?
Sometimes they get a podcast
first round in fantasy football.
I play if your league has a kicker, I don't play. Take the kicker. Take the kicker.
A kicker?
Yeah, take the kicker. Yeah, wow. Take the kicker and the defense out and add a flex player. Let's actually put football players on the field, like real ones. Good God.
Can we figure out the fantasy football version for a punter? Like that'd be awesome.
I mean, well, Monday Night Football was great for my screens per point league and my punt per point league. So I was killing it with all the screens that the Bears were throwing.
Oh God. All right. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of aspects of 49ers Eagles. And
absolutely.
We're at the 53-minute mark. It's Eric's favorite part of the show. I promise you, Eric, we're gonna get you theme music for this show. It's our prediction portion where we actually predict who's gonna win this game, lose this game, and I don't know. I mean, you are our guest, Jason, and I mean, we know the answer.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Am I doing a prediction first?
Jason, kick it off.
Knock it out.
Oh, Well, I mean, it wouldn't send me back to San Francisco land if, and you know what's funny is I live in northern New Jersey, by the way. So like, I'll probably be down this weekend. Like, it's just a quick drive, like to get down. So yeah, northern New Jersey guy caping for the 49ers on a Philly podcast. Please don't kill me if you see me, guys. I'm really nice. I'd love to just talk football with you guys. But
it's okay. I'm from Central Jersey.
There you go. Wait, there is a Central Jersey? Brian, we're gonna have to talk about this offline. I don't know. I think it's north to south.
Central Jersey. No.
I don't know if it's Central. What is Central? All right, it's all right.
There's South Jersey and North Jersey. Then
that's what I think too, Eric. That's what I think.
There's bagels in between. There's the bagel belt.
we call it Narnia. Okay, it's called Narnia. Like you walk through it, you're like in a whole other world.
Listen, I'm willing to listen to the argument. I just want to know where Central Jersey is. But no, look, I've got the 49ers winning this one, 31-24. It's going to come down to the last moments. I do think that these are the two best teams in football. I don't want to hear any more about the Kansas City Chiefs right now until they figure out what their receiver core is. You know, you can't even count on the Buffalo Bills to be ranked 8th in the AFC. They're like 10th at this point. I think we all know who Dallas kind of is. They're going to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. They got to beat somebody real before they show me anything. So that's the one thing that we've got in common, right? Is that we own the Cowboys. I love that for us. And then everybody else is just kind of also rans in the NFC, right? Like, Minnesota's a fun story. Detroit is kind of showing themselves a little bit more and more, even though they have a very easy schedule. I really, truly think that the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers are the two best teams in the NFL right now and have been showing it week to week. I don't care how you guys have been winning. You guys are winning. And I think that's more important than playing 3.5 good quarters and saying, hey, we played most of this game well and we lost. I'd actually like to get wins out the mud like the Eagles have. I really like those wins. They're character wins, and they're just finding ways to win games. But, yeah, they won't let me back and do 49ers content if I choose the Eagles. So I got the 49ers winning this one, guys. Please don't kill me. And I love Philly. Philly's a great town. I can't wait to be there this weekend.
Who's going next? Who's following that?
He knows how to pander. Just a little bit. No, you know what? I'm just gonna go right out the gate with a weird score. So here it is: Philadelphia Eagles.
Wait.
What?
There it is. I needed Doug to get a shine. Doug needed.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I saw him telling me the same thing like a half hour ago too. He's got it. Look, I got eyes on deck. Got eyes on duck. Whatever. Listen. 33-29 Philadelphia. There's your weird score. All right. But all the scores are weird in this. Whatever. 4-point game. It's going to be close. I see it being high scoring. I don't want to pick the 31-28. I mean, my mind told me to pick that, score the entire time. It doesn't matter. I got Philadelphia winning it. It's going to be a close game. Deebo Samuel's somebody that I think will just kind of pick apart our linebackers as far as rushing the ball. That's going to open up a lot of different looks, like short, medium distance, whatever it may be. Also, then there's McCaffrey, and that's just a bunch of crazy stuff going on. And I think that the Eagles are going to make that timely play because you guys will own the middle of the field, and we'll get it. So 33-29 Philadelphia. I think we come out on top.
We got to find a new Eric. What's going on, man? You know what you're supposed to do, and you're not.
Yeah, you're ruining the flow, dude. Like,
you're supposed to pick the 49ers, Eric.
No. Here's the real 49ers. Here's the deal.
Have you been picking the Chiefs and the Bills? Is that the bit?
Yep. Every single week, I come on here and I pick who I want, and then it turns out, the one time that I pick against Philadelphia still wins. Yeah, who I want. Like, it's going to be accurate. Who I think is going to win. Who I want. So, yeah, I picked Philadelphia. That's who I think is going to win. That's who I want. If they're going to lose because of it, has nothing to do with me. I love Philadelphia thinks it does, though. All of Philadelphia thinks it does.
Guys, what's the point? Do we even say our prediction? Like, what's the point? We already know. Now I gotta switch.
I love how Eric's prediction is why the Eagles are going to win. Like, it's the funniest thing, too, because, like, even on my shows, if I don't show conviction and, like, the 49ers are going to roll them, it's all your fault. I was like, yeah, I should have caught that pass. I should have made that block. Like, I totally blew it. Like, it's definitely on me. I love that.
Howie's a fan of the show, man. We know for sure. There's been too many things we predicted that are coming to fruition. So, I mean, at this point, he's going to pull someone. I don't know what's going to happen, but.
I've been shoving every brother. I've been brotherly shoving, dude. Just going like this all year.
I've been shoving every brother.
Every last one of them, dude. All of your brothers, all of my brothers, I'm shoving them, dude. We're going. Like, that's all I've been doing, trying to show my support every single week. Eric, say the thing. I said it. I hope they win. 33-29. Cap that, Morgan.
Cap that.
Morgan, you're up.
I'm up.
Yeah. Call you out, Morgan.
I mean, maybe I can be Eric this week because I actually do think that as good as the Eagles have been at finding ways to win, this is just a tough team to leave it up to the final minutes against. I do think it's going to be close. I would love to say this would be a defensive matchup. That's where I would really like to see the Eagles kind of sharpen their tools a little bit on the defensive side of the football. If you're going to let Josh Allen do it, he did. Don't get me wrong, he's playing out of his mind right now, but there's way too many plays left on the field for the Eagles defense. What I'd like to see is this, both teams below 25. So I think my prediction is going to be 27-24 because I don't think it quite happens. I'm going San Francisco. And simply because I think that the Eagles' offensive line is looking a little shaky at the wrong time going into this game. Like, there's way too many question marks. The tackling wasn't great. That's another huge factor. And those are things that don't just get shorn up in a week. If shorn is the right word, I don't even know. But shored up? Yeah, anyways, whatever. Anyways, I just think there's a lot of kind of question marks that the Eagles have been getting away with. It seems like the right time of the season for a little wake-up call. If they escape this game with a win, I mean, they have to be favorites for the Super Bowl, right? Like, if they are able to do their magic one more time against what should be the best team they play, like Jason said, this season, I mean, they have to be Super Bowl favorites. So I think that there's just too many areas of this offense and this defense that are kind of on the fence, that they need a little punch in the face, and I think they'll be better for it. So I'm going 49ers 27, Eagles 24.
Well, there we have it. We got the new Eric going forward.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it too. I was like, man,
I'm growing the beard already.
I like your guys' style here. One of you guys jumps on the sword, and it's all for the greater good. I like your style. I see your games. This is all gamesmanship I'm watching here.
Yeah, listen. I think that it is going to be a close game. I think that everyone's been right about that. I think it's kind of, I don't want to say obvious because every Sunday is different. Every game on every Sunday is different. The line opened up with the Niners favored by a point. In Philadelphia, it's since gone up to 2.5. A lot of money going towards San Francisco right now. I do think that there's a little bit of sleeping on Philadelphia at home going on right now. Philadelphia is hot. They play better in that wet, slopping environment than San Francisco does. I think that this is going to come down kind of close to the wire, and I think, oddly enough, San Francisco comes up a kick short. So I am thinking it's a boring score, but I'm thinking 31-28 Eagles.
I'd love that for my brand.
Wow, okay. So I think Philly has to prepare for the next couple of weeks of national media bullshit, right? It's going to be a lot of Brock Purdy stuff. It's going to be a lot of praise for Kyle Shanahan. I don't think Philly escapes this one with a win, just for the simple fact that I think this team, like Morg said, they need a little bit of a punch in the face, right? Defensive line isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? The secondary is still not where they're supposed to be. We don't know what the linebacker core is going to be until tomorrow afternoon when Shaq Leonard signs with the Eagles. And then there's also the offense, right? Like Brian Johnson, that's my dog shakes himself off. Brian Johnson can't keep getting away with this. You can't play with fire and not get burned. Like at some point you're going to get burned. And I think this is the moment that it's okay to get burned. You're losing against a team that's damn near good. At the end of the season, do I think the 49ers are the better team? Absolutely not. I think Philly, a punch to the face is going to really help this team. But I see the 49ers escaping this game 35-32. I just think that Philly just comes up short. It's just a matter of just, playing with fire too much where it just you got burned, right? But it's going to be for the better, right? Because we're going to end up going to Dallas the week after. We're going to smack them in the face. And then going forward, we're going to handle our business as we should. I still think Eagles lock up home field advantage at the end of the season. because, like I said last year, if the playoffs got to go through Philly, nobody's escaping except for Philly. But I think this game is going to be it's probably the game of the year. It's going to be huge. I can't stand Kyle Shanahan. I'm sorry, Jason.
What did Kyle do?
He's just a little too arrogant for me.
Oh yeah. Oh, big arrogance, of course.
Yeah,
big I know ball, you don't arrogance. I love it.
Yeah, like it's like a mix of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, Sirianni's really nice and humble. I don't know if you've seen that.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, it is rich coming from us.
I can guarantee you that no 49er fan is upset by Sirianni's face at all. Like I guarantee you that.
Yeah. He's like, so Kyle Shanahan has a punchable face. Noted.
Yeah. He's the son from Succession. Like literally, that's like he looks just like him at all. Like, but yeah, very much like anytime you interact with him is I know ball, you don't, and listen to me.
Yeah, we dealt with that in Philadelphia on the basketball side of things last season, and it wore out its welcome pretty quickly.
Well, you got rid of Harden. I love that for you guys.
Yeah, it's been looking pretty stunning on the basketball side, but and I still can't believe. I feel like we kind of just glossed over the fact that Brian and Brian, you said that you did pick the 49ers, or was that right?
Yeah,
did I hear that right?
I've been saying it all season. I think this game they do drop in.
So we had two. The two who were supposed to be the good boys of the pod picking the 49ers to beat the Eagles. So I just want to burn that into Duck's memory real quick here. So he remembers that I was the only one who picked the Eagles this week.
It's not true.
It's not true
at all.
We got to remember that going forward because, as Duck said, Eric absolutely picked the 49ers. So we just got to remember that I was the one who picked Philadelphia and stayed true.
Sorry, Eric. Nothing you said matters.
No, this is just how it goes.
I'm gonna edit. I'll edit it all, fix it all. So when Eric speaks, it'll be like, I'll blank over the Eagles. It'll say Chiefs. It'll say Chiefs just like it did last week, even though he didn't pick the Chiefs that week. It'll say Buffalo just like it did last week, even though it didn't say Buffalo. So I'll fix it.
I'm impressed with your tactics, guys. I need to write this down for my own team, man.
Oh God. So yeah, I mean, 3 49ers and 2 Eagles. Oh, 1 Eagle for this game, right? Jason, we do appreciate you for coming on. Hopefully, when we meet in the playoffs, we definitely get you back on. For those that are new to you in our chat or that are listening, where can they find your work?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me again. This was a blast, a lot of fun. Talk about the best game of the season, and it's unfortunate it's not national TV, but this will be the most watched game of the season. Like even out of your market, everybody's going to go out of their way to find this Eagles-Niners game, because I do think it is the 2 best teams in football. So that's exciting to be a part of. And we both hate the Dallas Cowboys, and I know you're going to beat the hell out of them next week, which is really fun as well too. But yeah, you guys can find me on NinersNation.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jason Aponte, as well too. Any of you Philly fans that want to come on, we're gonna have a call-in show tonight on the channel, so we'll drop the link in there. You guys can call in and hey, tell us how we got you messed up and the Niners got no shot in this one. I'd love to hear different perspectives. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. Just one quick shout out I want to say, and this is like very random, but camping is very cool, and that's for somebody out there watching.
I mean, Morgan camps, right? You hunt mooses and stuff like that.
I'm just Canadian, man. I camp before. Like
they happen to have woods there, Brian.
Just so happen to have a tent in my trunk.
I love the answer. It's like I'm just Canadian, man.
Avid camper, maple syrup connoisseur.
Wait, Morgan said he went outside before. Does he camp?
Round bacon believer. These things are Morgan PSN.
My house is made of snow. It's just painted really well. Yeah.
Aren't you supposed to be on a hockey podcast? I'm supposed to be on a hockey podcast.
Oh, lacrosse, buddy.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I'm supposed to be on a lacrosse podcast.
Yeah.
Oh God, we're a mess. But yeah, Jason, thank you for coming on, man, and dealing with our antics. We appreciate you for joining us tonight. Outside of that, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach, Eric, Morgan. We're flipping the birds.
Go birds.
Go birds.
Yes, sir.
Flipping the birds. Flipping the birds.